wanted proof. So Ava ran down the hospital hallway, out the doors, into the street, grabbing the first man she saw. A stranger. A construction worker in a borrowed coat. Please, she begged, just pretend for 5 minutes. And he did. He walked into that hospital room, wrapped his arm around her, and told her mother everything she needed. The stranger she grabbed outside the hospital was never supposed to stay. Ava didn't plan to lie. She hadn't spoken to her mother in years, not really. Not since the diagnosis. Not since her mother's mind began slipping into past versions of herself, clutching memories like lifelines, forgetting what year it was, and who stayed, and who didn't. But that day, something broke. Her mother opened her eyes just for a moment and whispered, "You married him, didn't you? That kind, rich man who loved you more than himself." Ava froze. She had no idea who her mother was talking about. Some fantasy, some story she'd imagined when the mind blurred from chemo and time. But Ava couldn't tell her no, not when she was fading, so she said, "Yes, Mama, I married him." 1 hour later, the nurse asked, "Does your husband need a visitor pass?" Ava panicked. He's on his way." And then she left, rushed into the city sidewalk, heart pounding, breath shallow. She had no plan until she saw him. Tall, dusty boots, paint flecked on his sleeves. He looked completely out of place in front of the hospital cafe, and yet somehow safe. She ran up breathless. "Please, I know this sounds insane, but I need your help. Just 5 minutes. Pretend to be someone. For my mom." He blinked. "Ma'am, are you okay? She's dying. She thinks I'm married, and I can't take that away from her." A pause. Then, "Okay." His name was Elijah. He followed her in. No questions, no hesitation. Inside the hospital room, he took her hand without being told. And her mother smiled for the first time in days. "There he is," she whispered. "My beautiful son-in-law." Elijah nodded. "Hi, Mama." He sat beside the bed, talked softly, held her frail hand, said things like, "She's everything to me. You know, I never believed in fate until I met her." "You raised a good one, ma'am." Ava watched in silence, his voice so natural, his presence so gentle. For those 15 minutes he made her mother believe. And somehow Ava believed it too. After the visit, they stepped into the hallway. She owed him nothing, but found herself wanting to tell him everything. They sat at a corner table. Ava stirred her coffee more than she drank it. Elijah, meanwhile, sat calm, weather-worn hands, folded eyes patient. "I still can't believe you said yes," she muttered. "Would have been worse if I didn't." She looked peaceful. A beat of silence. "You were good in there," she said. "Like, scarily good." He gave a half smile. "I had practice, pretending to be married, pretending to be more than I am." She looked up, and for a moment the air shifted. Flashback, Ava 3 weeks ago. She sat outside her mother's room watching old wedding shows on her phone. It had been their thing back when things were okay. Back before illness stole the version of her mother who was sharp, elegant, opinionated. Now she barely remembered Ava's name, but she remembered a love story that never happened. A rich, kind man, a strong daughter, a happy ending, none of it real. Until Elijah stepped into it. Back to present. "So," Elijah said, sipping his black coffee, "why does your mom think you're married to some billionaire?" Ava laughed softly. "I don't know. Maybe it's what she wished for me." "And what did you wish for?" She looked out the window. Taxis passed. People hurried. Life moved fast except inside that moment. I wish she'd lived long enough to see me find someone who saw me the way she imagined. And now she has. A pause. "Except you're not him." He tilted his head. "Aren't I?" She blinked. "You're a stranger I grabbed outside a hospital. And you're a woman who trusted me with the most fragile thing in her life." Silence again. Not cold, not awkward. Loaded. Later that night, Ava sat beside her mother again. The nurse brought tea. Said her mother had smiled more in the last few hours than in the past 2 weeks. "He's special," her mother whispered. "Who?" Ava asked, though she knew. "Your husband. The one who brought you back to me." Ava nodded, but deep down she felt something new. Not guilt, not fear, longing. Because for the first time in years, someone had stepped into her story, not to rescue her, but to stand still and hold space. The next morning she called him. "Want to come back?" She asked about you. "What should I wear, Mrs. Caldwell?" She smiled through the phone. "You've already got the part. Just show up." And he did. Because sometimes you don't choose love. You choose kindness. And somewhere along the way, love chooses you. She invited him back to keep the illusion alive. But it was her own heart that started believing Elijah came back the next day. No suit, no flowers, just the same steady presence and a cup of lemon tea for Ava's mother. She beamed when he walked in. "There's my son-in-law," she whispered with a smile. Ava's chest ached, because it was easier when it felt like a one-time act of kindness. But now he was part of the picture. And her mother, her once impossible, unreachable mother, was softer, brighter. All because of this man who had no reason to stay, but did. That evening, they sat in the hospital garden after visiting hours. Ava handed him a sandwich she made herself. "Wow," he said, biting in. "Homemade. Didn't expect this." "Well, I didn't expect you'd come back either." "Why did you ask me to?" She hesitated. "Because she remembered you, and I couldn't bear to disappoint her again." A beat passed. "But you could have said no." "I didn't want to." She studied him, his hands callous steady, his eyes serious but kind. Not a trace of performance in his presence. No swagger, no pretending, which made the irony even heavier. "She thinks you're some billionaire who swept me off my feet. And you, I think, you're the only person who's been truly gentle with me in months." He looked at her, then really looked. "Ava, this story we're building, just so you know, I'm not here for the fantasy. I'm here for the truth, if you want it." She didn't speak, didn't nod, but she didn't turn away either. And that was enough for now. Flashback her ex, an ambitious tech executive. Cold kisses, empty dinners. He once told her, "You're too much. You'll never be easy to love." And maybe he was right, until Elijah showed up uninvited and made love look simple. Not loud, not fiery, just present. 2 days later, her mother's vitals dipped. The doctor pulled Ava aside. "She's stable, but it's time to start preparing." Ava nodded. Tears burned, but she didn't cry. Not until Elijah came in, holding her favorite flowers. "I just thought maybe today she'd like color." Ava broke. Right there in the hallway. Collapsed into him. Let herself be held. He didn't say a word. He just let her fall and held her until the grief didn't feel like drowning. Because when someone carries your lie and your sorrow and still stays, she was supposed to be grateful, not attached. Her mother kept asking for Elijah. At first it was simple. "Where's my son-in-law?" Then it became more intimate. "Does he still leave you notes in your lunchbox? Does he sing to you when the power goes out? Does he still call you his lucky charm?" Ava would smile, nod, sometimes add to the story. Sometimes just sit in silence, guilt threading through every word. But Elijah, he played along, beautifully, sometimes even better than she could. And it started to feel like they weren't pretending anymore. One evening in the hospital room, her mother had fallen asleep. Elijah sat beside her, a puzzle book open on his lap. Ava leaned against the wall watching him. "Why are you still here?" she whispered. "Because I want to be. But this isn't your life. None of this is real." He looked at her. "You feel real to me." Flashback Ava age 12. She'd once stood on stage for a school play. Her mother, young and glowing, clapped louder than anyone in the crowd. "You were born to be seen," she said, But after cancer, after the years of drifting apart, Ava stopped being seen. Until now. Until Elijah looked at her like she was center stage again. Back to present. Later that night, they left the hospital hand in hand for her mother's sake, yes. But when they reached the elevator and no one was watching, they didn't let go. I keep thinking about the moment this ends, Ava said softly. Does it have to? She stared at him. This was a favor, remember? A favor doesn't feel like this. A pause. Then, he kissed her. No build-up. No dramatics. Just lips pressed gently against hers in the quiet hum of a hospital hallway. Afterward, neither said a word. They walked to her car in silence. But inside her chest, something had shifted, and it terrified her. Because lies don't kiss you back. And strangers don't make your heart skip in familiar ways. Later that night, her mother wakes up. Did he tuck you in? Her mother asked with a smile. Ava blinked. What? Your husband. He always kissed you goodnight, even when you pretended to be mad. Ava forced a smile, nodded. But inside she was crumbling, because maybe the lie had gone too far. Or maybe not far enough. She knew it was a lie, but her heart didn't care anymore. Ava stood in front of her mirror. Same apartment, same dress, same face. But she didn't recognize the woman staring back. Was she the liar who tricked her dying mother? Or the girl falling for a man she shouldn't even know? Flashback earlier that week. Elijah had made soup. She had a headache. Long day. Didn't ask for anything. But he knocked on her door again, holding a thermos and 2 spoons. Thought you might need warmth. Not food. Warmth. She didn't cry then, but she felt something crack. Back to present. They were now deep in it. Her mother spoke about future grandkids, asked about vacation plans, asked if he still called Ava Pumpkin like in the early days. Elijah played along softly without hesitation. But Ava, she started to feel trapped inside her own wish. Because each time she corrected nothing, she allowed her heart to want everything. One morning, he kissed her forehead after visiting her mom. She froze. You don't have to do that, she whispered. I know. It's all built on a lie. Then tell me when you want to stop. But she couldn't, because the alternative was losing the only person who made her feel seen. Flashback her father, years ago. He once told her, don't fall for someone who makes you feel lucky. Fall for someone who makes you feel real. Elijah did both. A few days later, her mother had a good day. They sat by the window in the sun. Promise me one thing, Ava, she said, voice thin but clear. Anything. Don't let this man go. He's the kind of man who doesn't run when things get hard. Ava blinked. You think I deserve him? I think he already knows you do. That night, she found Elijah outside on the hospital balcony, watching stars. I can't keep doing this, she said. Okay, but I also don't want you to leave. Then I'll stay, even if this was never supposed to be real. He turned to her, stepped closer. You're still acting like I'm pretending. A pause. Then, Ava, I stopped pretending the second you smiled at me like I'd always been yours. And just like that, the truth was no longer terrifying. It was alive. And he stopped pretending and she started hoping. The next time Elijah visited her mother, he brought real flowers. Not from a store. From his own backyard garden. Ava watched him arrange them by her mother's bedside, gentle, thoughtful. It didn't look like a lie. It looked like family. That evening, Ava walked him to the parking lot. You've become part of this, part of us. You let me, but what happens when it ends? When she's gone? He turned toward her. I stay. She blinked. Why would you? Because I didn't show up for her anymore. I'm still here because of you. Flashback Ava years ago. After her last real breakup, she promised herself, no more men who leave before morning. No more men who flinch when life gets hard. But Elijah, he stayed longer than anyone ever asked him to, and he never once flinched. Back to present. That night, Ava couldn't sleep. She kept replaying every word he'd ever said, every touch that lingered too long, every moment she didn't want to call pretend anymore. Was it possible? Was it allowed? Could love grow inside a lie and still be real? The next day, her mother's health declined. The doctor called it the beginning of the goodbye. Ava stood in the hallway frozen. Tears welled but wouldn't fall. Elijah showed up within 30 minutes. No words, no hesitation. Just wrapped her in his arms and whispered, "Whatever comes, we'll walk through it together." She didn't correct him. Not about we, not about together. Because in that moment, those two words were the only things holding her upright. Later that night in her mother's room, they sat on either side of the bed. Her mother opened her eyes. "You're still here," she whispered to Elijah. "I'm not going anywhere." "Good. You're the best thing that ever happened to my daughter." Ava tried to smile, but something broke in her chest. "Mama," she began. "No," her mother interrupted, eyes clear. "Don't push him away. Don't run just because you're scared." "I'm not running. You're not letting yourself stay either." Silence. Then her mother reached for both their hands. "Let love surprise you, baby. Let it rewrite the ending." After she fell asleep again, Elijah kissed Ava's knuckles. Soft, steady. "I meant it. All of it. Every word I ever said to her, I meant for you. Even the part about she lied to make her mother feel safe. But he stayed to make her feel loved." The hospital room was quieter now. No machines beeping, no soft nurse chatter, just the breath of a woman slowly fading and the two people holding on. Ava sat beside her mother, Elijah beside her. They hadn't spoken in a while. They didn't need to. His hand stayed in hers. His presence stayed steady. And for the first time in years, Ava didn't feel like she was carrying everything alone. Flashback, Ava, age 9. Her mother once told her, after a fever broke, "Even when you were sick, you were strong." But now, watching her mother drift in and out, Ava realized, strength isn't just standing alone, it's letting someone stay. That evening, Elijah offered to go home. "You need sleep, real sleep." "No," Ava whispered. "I want to be here when she goes." He didn't argue, just pulled another chair beside her and folded his jacket like a pillow. They spent the night side by side, not speaking, just being. 2:13 a.m. Her mother stirred, eyes fluttered open, then focused clearer than they'd been in days. She looked at Elijah, then Ava. "He's still here," she whispered. "I told you," Ava smiled, voice breaking. "He doesn't leave." "Good," her mother said. "Then I can rest." She reached for their joined hands. "You made me proud, both of you." Her voice faded, and just like that, she was gone. Later that night, Ava didn't cry loudly. She sat still, head on Elijah's shoulder, eyes dry but burning. "You don't have to stay anymore," she whispered. He turned to her. "You're right, I don't." A beat. "So let me stay, because I want to." She looked up at him, everything cracked wide open. "But this started with a lie. Then let's make the rest of it honest." He reached into his coat pocket, pulled out the folded note she once left him, the one from the very beginning. This felt real. "I'm terrified. Don't let that scare you." "I never was," he said. Flash forward 1 month later. Ava stood on a small stage at her mother's memorial. Friends, family, flowers. She cleared her throat. "My mother loved stories, even the ones that weren't quite true." A soft laugh rippled through the crowd. She believed in happy endings. The lie ended, but he didn't walk away. 1 week after the funeral, Ava opened her front door to find Elijah standing there. No flowers, no expectations, just him. He held out a box, plain cardboard worn at the edges. "It's not much," he said, "but it's yours if you want it." She opened it slowly. Inside, a key, a letter folded in half, a photo of her mother smiling between them the day she passed. Ava swallowed hard. "What is this?" "It's the start of the truth. No lies, no pretending, just me asking if you still want this life we faked." Flashback the first night they met. She didn't ask for forever. She asked for 5 minutes. He gave her everything. Back to present. They sat on her sofa, knees touching. She held the photo between her fingers. What if we don't know how to do this for real? Then we'll learn. And if it doesn't feel like the fairy tale she wanted, then maybe it'll feel like something better. Something ours. She looked up at him, not the man she pulled from the sidewalk, but the one who walked with her through grief, truth, and homecoming. And in that moment, she didn't need a fairy tale. She just needed him. 1 year later, they didn't throw a wedding. No white dress, no gold-plated invitations. Just vows whispered on a beach at sunset, her mother's ashes scattered in the tide, a photo tucked in her bouquet. He promised, I will never leave when things get hard. She promised, I won't pretend I don't need you. They kissed. No audience. Just the wind and the waves and everything they built from the ground up. Epilogue. Their firstborn was named Hope. Not because they planned it, but because that's what the nurse wrote on the chart by mistake. And Ava didn't correct her, because maybe mistakes aren't always wrong. Sometimes they're just doors. And behind one such door years ago stood a stranger. Kind, quiet,